Matilda the Musical is a musical based on the book by Roald Dahl about a clever girl named Matilda Wormwood. When most children are born, their parents think they are miracles, but not Matilda. Her mother, Mrs. Wormwood, loves ballroom dancing, and her father, Mr. Wormwood, is a sly used car salesman. She also has an older brother, Michael. At the start of the musical, Mrs. Wormwood is pregnant with Matilda, but she doesn't realise. When Matilda is born, both Mr. and Mrs. Wormwood don't really seem to care very much about their new daughter. Mr. Wormwood even thinks she's a boy. 5 years later, Matilda is a little girl who loves to read books and invent stories. But her family are more interested in watching television and ignore Matilda most of the time. Sometimes her dad is quite nasty to her, and she plays tricks on him to try and put things right. Matilda also spends a lot of time in the library, where she tells stories to the librarian, Mrs. Phelps. On the very first day of school, she meets her very kind and caring teacher, Miss Honey. Miss Honey likes Matilda and realises how brilliant and clever she is. Miss Honey goes to see the school headmistress, Miss Trunchbull, to recommend that Matilda move to the top of the class. Miss Trunchbull is quite frightening and doesn't like children, and in particular, doesn't like Matilda. Miss Trunchbull is bossy and mean to the children of the school. She tells Miss Honey that Matilda is not allowed to move classes. She must stay where she is, as it's important to follow the rules. Matilda isn't the only one Mrs. Trunchbull punishes. She uses a cupboard in her office called Chokey to punish children when they do things wrong. None of the children like her. Keep an eye out, because later on in the show they start to rebel. Miss Honey tries to help Matilda, and they become very good friends. Miss Honey tells Matilda about her childhood and the awful aunt who raised her. When Matilda visits the library, she tells Mrs. Phelps a story about a couple, a world-famous acrobat and an escapologist and their adventures. The story gets bigger and bigger. But how does Matilda's tale end? Watch the show to find out.